Let's bring you straight to the latest pictures we're getting from the Reuters news agency within Gaza of people leaving with their cars loaded with personal items, it seems, and families, as you can see in the back of that estate car. This follows, of course, this leaflet drop from the Israeli Defense Force urging people to leave the northern area of Gaza City and head south.
There are some 1 million people in Gaza City who have been given 24 hours to leave. Although, interestingly, in this press conference earlier, the Israeli Defence Minister didn't really say whether or not that 24-hour deadline was absolute or whether it would be allowed to pass. But you can see there people fleeing to the south of the Gaza Strip for their safety and protection. But the UN and the World Health Organization is criticising this warning from Israel, this leaflet drop, because they say the humanitarian impact is going to be massive. Yeah, and interestingly now we have a senior US State Department official indicating that Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, when he was meeting Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, had discussed the need to establish what they were calling safe areas in Gaza where civilians could relocate. The latest we're getting from that State Department official is that the US is engaging with both the Red Cross and the UN relief agencies to figure out, is a phrase they use there, what that might look like. So clearly that is in discussion at the moment. We'll update you as we get more from Reuters that's been speaking to that state official. Well, joining us now is Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan-Nahoum. Good afternoon to you. Thanks for talking to us. Just bring us up to date with what is happening in Jerusalem. Has it remained quiet over the last few days? Has there been any trouble?
Well, last night, actually, there was an attack by a gunman on a police station, and he seriously injured a policeman, an Israeli policeman, who's still in hospital, probably be there for a while. But mostly there's been kind of a tense quiet in Jerusalem over the last week. We're on alert. We've reinforced security patrols, and we're hoping that there won't be another front opened up here. For the most part, the 40% population of Jerusalem that is Muslim Arab are peace-loving people, but you have radicals, you have Hamas sleeper cells, you have a lot of that as well. So we have to keep our eyes on the ball and make sure that things don't get out of hand, because the last thing we need is another front right here in our city.
And some relief, perhaps, Fleur, that with this day of prayer, that's not occurred as far as we're aware, that things have been relatively calm and that people have been able to go about their business.
That's what we feared, because we've seen scenes when Hamas want to create trouble on Temple Mount. They really know how to do that. And thank God today, things have been relatively calm, yes.
Looking at the wider picture, clearly we've got things developing all the time, and we had this news conference with Yoav Gallant and Lloyd Austin, the US Defense Secretary. I just wondered what you made of Lloyd Austin's comments about resolve, not revenge, and purpose, not panic, clearly when there is this worry about how things may develop in Gaza.
Well, I agree with him on the resolve, not revenge. And I've been saying already for 3 days in the press that Israel is not a country out for revenge. First of all, the most important thing is to bring back our 150 innocent hostages. There are women, there are children, there are elderly. My friend's son has been kidnapped. He lost an arm. They shot it off. And we're really, really fearful for his health. And also if hopefully he can be released. He's an American citizen. There are British citizens in there. These people did nothing. They went to a party. There was the majority of the people being held hostage in Gaza, young women there who we have reports that have been routinely raped. It's a horror what they've done to us. It's a massacre that we experienced last Saturday. And any sovereign country needs to react. We cannot give in to terrorism, and we can't let this bordering country that is run by a terrorist organization called Hamas, that is a puppet of Iran, we cannot let them terrorize our citizens. It's our most basic obligation to our people.
So, Fleur, would you like to see the rescue of the hostages prioritised before
Absolutely.
the ground offensive?
I would love anything to happen in order to bring back these hostages. And I think that if Hamas care about their own people, which they've proved over the last 15 years that they don't really care about their own people, because otherwise they wouldn't have launched rockets into Israel for 15 whole years. If they actually want to think strategically, they should release the hostages, and maybe the war won't be as horrible as it might end up being. Israel never wants to hurt innocent civilians. The reason we've told people to move down to the south is because we don't want innocent civilians in Gaza in harm's way. We are more considerate of their civilians than their own government are. It's a ridiculous situation. There's no other way. No country would tolerate this. Unfortunately, war is ugly. And in any war, you're going to have innocents being killed. Britain wouldn't have won the Second World War if they hadn't carpet bombed Dresden. Do you think there weren't German innocents that also died there? Of course they were, but that's not what Britain intended to do.
Fleur, do you accept, though, that
it is a war? It is a civilizational war.
Fleur, I just wanted to ask you, do you accept that, yes, Israel has given that warning to people in Gaza, but actually the practicalities of it are just impossible?
Well, you've seen everybody leave. You've seen people moving. You've seen people in cars. So people are leaving.
Do you think 1 million plus people can leave before and get out?
Anything's possible. And let's not forget that they have a border. Gaza has a border with Egypt. Now, they're not at war with Egypt. They declared war on Israel. And just like Britain and many other countries in continental Europe opened their doors when the Ukraine war started, why can't Egypt open a humanitarian corridor? Why is it on us, the attacked, to help our aggressor?
Fleur Hassan-Nahoum from Jerusalem, Deputy Mayor there. Thank you very much indeed for updating us, and we hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Let's now bring in Robert Fox, Defence Editor at the Evening Standard, who will be with us for the next hour or so. And Robert, just to pick up on something that Fleur was talking of there, is it doable to rescue the hostages? I mean, the Israelis do have this specialist unit, Sayeret Matkal. Indeed, Benjamin Netanyahu was a member of it with his brother at one time, directly involved.
It's not time to dwell on past glories. It is very, very difficult. Even the rescue, the Entebbe raid, was so totally different. They knew where everybody was then. I'm not going to second guess it. What they seem to be saying that they intend is very difficult. It's almost like a contradiction in terms. To go in, to root out the Hamas leadership, to get the fighters, to get the bunkers, to get the arsenals, and to get the hostages released.
Yeah.
I just don't see how they're going to do it. There's a pile of rubble. Rubble makes brilliant defences, by the way, and you have fighters mixed with what you might call civilians. And how does the average Israeli soldier
distinguish between the two?
And he's a citizen. Yeah. She's a citizen.
And this contradiction of this huge aerial assault, as you say, the rubble, with them being told they're all in the tunnels. There is a subterranean Gaza where they operate. So therefore, what is the military reasoning behind flattening the buildings?
Yes, well, are they going to go... Remember, the Americans got into a bit of difficulty with this in 91 in Baghdad, where they had bunker-penetrating bombs, and they kept on saying they were military targets. And they knocked out 300 refugees in one raid. It's very, very difficult to discern the human content. Fighting in streets is very difficult, even for the most professional armies. Look how the British Army struggled in the early days when things got hot in Belfast and Derry, both those in the early 1970s. The French know it, and they've known it brutally through experiences in Algeria, which made a brilliant film, by the way, the Battle of Algiers. And the Brits and the French trained together with their elite units intensively for this. If you're going to try and actually, it will have to require a certain amount of swarm tactics. In other words, you will be putting in, I think, tens of thousands of Israeli troops of various degrees of skill training. The elite, very good at the front. But the way you do it, as the experience even of the British mandate there was, you cordon and search. You have to draw a cordon round and you have to go in and search in the rubble with lots of people, probably quite a few corpses, I'm afraid to say. How are you going to find them? It's going to, do they know where the hostages are? By the way, this, as we got a hint with Lloyd Austin and Tony Blinken, is that it's quite clear why we're there, why the Americans are there. Everybody was saying, isn't it absurd, the Brits sending 2 Navy ships, support helicopters and Marines with surveillance equipment. We do have an interest. We have British citizens there. And this is a principle that's been established, particularly by the Canadians, curiously, where the life of your citizen, an innocent British citizen, is at stake, there is a British interest.
Robert, since last weekend's terrorist atrocities, we hear Israel say repeatedly that they want to crush Hamas. Is that possible? And is not a political solution also needed, not just a military one here?
The politics has failed, and it has failed from the beginning of Hamas in 1987. But the politics is where it lies. And that answers your first question. I'm sorry to make it like a puzzle. Because a lot of the power, the real long-distance runner power of Hamas, is not with these rather crazy and, as we found, psychopathic and crazed fighters of the kind that went into the settlements and the kibbutz to the east of Gaza.
Yeah.
But it's where you have the money, a lot of the brains, and a lot of the access to the weaponry. And it's the Gulf. That opens the gates. You get a lot of supply from Hezbollah. Yes, there's been a lot of basic training of the guys and people on the ground, and it is a very sexist society, so it's mostly blokes. But a lot of the stuff from Iran comes through that route. So I think that the some brain somewhere, I fear, is planning a game of retreat, a last stand. But it won't be over for Hamas, alas.
And very quickly, is that Tehran, as we heard from Yoav and Galant, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, one axis of evil, or are they operating on a different, separate basis?
I think that's a very particular point of view. Now, I'm trying to be very careful because I don't want to stir things. The Israelis have been obsessed with destroying Tehran and Iran for a long, long time. They've feared they're going to get nuclear weapons and so on. But militancy just doesn't come from the Shia axis. And this is the thing that's so weird, and I've been trying to explain it. Actually, the roots of I've given it away, of Hamas are largely with Sunni mosques and sects, Sheikh Yassin, the founder,
and Sunni Muslims,
and so they're bedfellows, but they're not quite aligned.